Last time Christian and Pliable fell into that bog, that slough of despond, and there was no way out without help, and Pliable said, this is not the heaven you promised, I'm going home. But Christian did call for help, and God sent help to him, and he got out. Now he's carrying along the path, and another character, another man comes up to him, Mr. Worldly Wiseman. And he looks at Christian and he sees the burden, the heavy rucksack that Christian is carrying. He sees that it's weighing him down and making him tired and exhausted so that he can hardly carry on. It's making him cry all the time. And he sees that Christian is covered in mud. And he asks him, where are you going? Christian says, I'm going to the celestial city. I'm carrying along the king's path. An evangelist has told me about this gate that I need to knock at to get in to be rescued. Mr. Worldly Wiseman said, I wouldn't listen to evangelist if I was you. His way is horrible. I hate evangelist because the way he tells people to go, well, it's full of danger. There's people with swords, there's dragons, there's lions. You'll be hungry, you'll have pain, you'll be crying loads. There's tons of danger. You could even die. I wouldn't go his way. His way is going to carry on being hard, just like that bog you fell into. There's danger all the way along that path. I'm fed up with evangelists telling people to go that way. Did you know there's an easier way to get rid of that burden that you're carrying, that rucksack? There's a really easy way to get rid of it. In fact, just over that mountain behind you, there's a village called Morality. It's a lovely village. Lovely little village. Really peaceful. People there try and live good lives. They try and be good neighbours to each other. They try and be kind. They try and live better lives than everywhere else. The man who's in charge, his name is Legality or Mr. Law. He is amazing and he is great. He's been helping people get rid of their rucksacks, their burdens for years. He makes people feel so much better about themselves. And his son is called Civility, Mr. Polite. He's just really nice, and you'd love living there. There's a lot easier way to get rid of the burden. Go and see them. Go and visit them. Well, Christian liked the words that Mr. Worldly Wiseman was saying. It did seem a lot easier than the way he'd been travelling. And he reached this fork in the roads, this decision. Am I going to carry on along the king's path and face all this difficulty and danger? Or I could just go and stay in the village of Morality. It's different to the city of destruction. It doesn't sound as bad. It doesn't sound as dangerous. And he changed direction. He decided to visit Morality. And he started to climb the mountain that Mr. Worldly Wiseman had pointed him to. But the problem was, the mountain, once he started to climb, was too high for him to get to the top of. He struggled and struggled till his legs went all wobbly, and he carried on trying to crawl up this mountain, but the higher he got, the more the rucksack weighed, until he couldn't stand up. It was so heavy. The mountain was too high. It weighed too much. It was too steep to climb. And just as he thought, how am I going to get through this? He lifted up his eyes and he saw Evangelist again in the distance coming to meet him. Evangelist didn't look happy. He said to Christian, why are you here? Why have you travelled this way? Why have you gone off the king's path? Why have you tried to climb this mountain? And Christian explained to him what Mr. Worldly Wiseman had said. Evangelist said, there is a man called Legality, Mr. Law, who lives here. But the advice he'll give you, what he says to you, can never, ever lift that rucksack off your back. It can never, ever lighten the weight. It's going to feel heavier. No one has ever been rescued or saved by trying to keep Mr. Legality's laws. In fact, he's not even free himself. He is the son of Mrs. Bondwoman, Mrs. Slave. He's not even free himself. And his son seems polite, he seems civil. But they're actually all slaves, and their burden is actually heavier. Don't listen. Don't keep climbing this mountain. Get back on the king's path. And he asked for a sign from heaven to prove that Evangelist's words were right. And there was flashes of lightning and thunder. And Christian was terrified. And he was so upset because he tried this way. And he wondered if there was hope. Was there a way back to the king's path? Could he find his way back to the gate? Would he be even accepted? Because he'd sinned. He'd done so many wrong things. And Evangelist said, if you go back this way, get back on the king's path, there is hope for you. And he pointed him back the right way. Christian got back on the path. He was starting to recognize the king's voice through all the king's servants, and the difference between the king's voice and all the other voices he heard, trying to stop him on his journey, trying to turn him to a different way, trying to distract him and slow him down. And he said, I'm not listening to any of those other voices anymore, any of those other questions. I am just going to follow the king's voice through his servants. That is leading me on the right path. Will Christian ever get rid of that heavy rucksack, the burden that he's carrying? Will he ever be free? What will happen next? Tune in next time to find out. We're going to take a look back through today's story to see what we can learn. Christian had had trouble through all of his journey, and he'd fallen into the bog and all these different obstacles and people trying to stop him. That when this guy, Mr. Worldly Wiseman, comes, his advice seems right, it seems amazing, it seems easy, and what he's really trying to do is to convince him to turn away from following Jesus. He's called Mr. Worldly Wiseman because this is how most of your friends and most of the world around you thinks. They think that being a Christian isn't worth it. They would say that there's so many dangerous things about being a Christian, so many temptations and trials, and if the devil is like a dragon and a serpent, it's not worth trying to fight through all that to heaven. It's just not worth it. So the life that they set up is trying to keep all of God's laws, trying to just keep the 10 Commandments, have better morals, better standards than everybody else, and trying to live better lives. And it seems attractive. It seems like there's peace. It seems like it's all right. It seems like they're nice people. It seems like that would be a good way to live. We can be tempted to change our way and become like the world, to try and rescue ourselves from the guilt that we feel for our sins and our past. We can try and improve ourselves. I'm going to turn over a new leaf. I'm going to make a promise. I'm going to be a better person. I'm going to try to be more patient. I'm going to try to be more loving. I'm going to try to be more kind. That's the route. That's the path I'm going to take. And I'm going to join in with the world. But the problem is when we start to climb this mountain, and this mountain is like Mount Sinai where God gave his 10 commandments, his laws. When we read God's laws, when we read his standard, his commands, we only feel more guilty. When we try and live by them, with our own strength, we feel more guilty because we realize we can't love God without his help. We can't be a good neighbor without his help. There's something wrong in our hearts, and it needs to go deeper than just changing our behavior to trying to be nice and patient. The problem is in our hearts, and sin is in there. We need a new heart. We need a new life. We can't just sort of wallpaper over everything that's bad with things that look better. We can't just paint over it and say, oh, look at this, look at how I'm behaving on the outside, when on the inside we're still selfish and wrong. An evangelist knows this, and he gives Christian help. He points him back to the right way. And just think, sometimes we are tempted to go back to our old way of life, or tempted to join in with the world and just try and be better people, but it can't save us. The law, God gave the law and his commands to show us how empty we are and to point us to Jesus, to show that we need saving, not to rest on those things to be saved. And no wonder Evangelist was annoyed. And he says, look, if you live that way, you're going to be more of a slave than ever before. If you choose the law that way, you have to be perfect in every way, which you can never be. No one can. There's only one man who can. That's Jesus. Jesus has kept the law. He's perfect in every way, and he's died to rescue you from your sin. So the voice we need to listen to is Jesus' voice. There's only one way we can be saved, and it's not by trying hard with all our strength to be better people. It's to trust in the one who is perfect, who does live by God's law, who can make us new on the inside, who can change our hearts. That's the only way that sin is going to be taken away and the rucksack is going to fall off. And we need to be careful to listen to his voice and his voice alone, to follow Jesus' way, not the world's wisdom. So there's a couple of things you can do. There's some verses there about what different troubles Jesus says we will have when we follow him. But Jesus doesn't leave us on our own. There's some amazing things that God promises to help us along our way as we trust in Jesus. So you can read 2 Timothy, John 16 and Isaiah to find out about those. Then if you want to look more into the law and why God gave the law, there's Romans 3, Galatians 2 and Galatians 3, those verses there. And you can find out why God gave his law, and also asking that question, if you're tempted, can anyone be saved by trying to keep the law by themselves? Then Ephesians 2 and Matthew 11, Jesus shows that there's only one way to be saved and what he promises when we come to him. Then you can add the town of morality, maybe the mountain that needed to be climbed over to get there, and Mr. Worldly Wiseman, you can add them to your map. And then maybe you can look up in the Bible and have a think, which group of people in the Bible boasted about following the law and thinking they were saved by that, but rejected Jesus? And as you read their lives, have a look. Are they free? Are they happy? Do they have life? Or are they actually still slaves? Are their words ever able to help anybody? Give you a clue. You'll find them in Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, constantly arguing with Jesus. See you next time.